Evening, guys. Evening, all. Welcome to the Football Diary podcast. I'm back here with a few of my mates again to talk about the week of football we've just had. And what a week. Say hello to Myles, Dave and Jon. How you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, good.
Good to see you all. Yeah, it's been a great week of football, hasn't it? We've had Champions League and Europa League to go through, some pretty good games there. And weekend of Premier League as well. Well, I say weekend. It started on Monday with a Hammers victory. And it's kind of ended just today with another Hammers victory. So we're going to go into some detail about the West Ham rise to the top four, because that's incredible. And Jesse Lingard's just been on fire lately. So I think Jon's the man to go through for that in a bit. Go through the European games as well. There's loads to talk through there. And a bit of an appreciation chat about Kylian Mbappé as well, because he was just awesome this weekend. A few awesome performances from a few teams and players to go through. I'll start with you, Jon, actually, because a happy Hammer sitting there after today. Everything looked rosy for West Ham for most of the game, but as always, they made it difficult for themselves. What did you make of it? The Hammers are fourth. Is that fair? And can they stay there? That's the important thing. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, I mean, staying power is important, as we all know. And like I alluded to the last few weeks when we've spoken about how West Ham are doing and the general push for any team in the top four, it's hard to look past your big players. Liverpool have, broken their duck at home where they lost 6 in a row. They finally managed to scrape out a hard-fought win, unfortunately, against Villa. I would have liked to see them drop more points, obviously. United cemented their place today with a hard-fought win against Spurs. Chelsea, new manager, I've only lost one game in 15, 16 or whatever it is. So I think for West Ham has got to keep winning, let's be honest. It's going to be hard. They need to beat the teams around them. So today, I think the Wolves game was massive on Monday purely for the fact that it was away from home. Wolves, although they've been a bit indifferent this season, are still a hard team to normally break down. So, to go 2-0 up inside the first 15 minutes was crazy. And obviously Lingard's goal was absolutely delicious. But then to have a nail biter towards the end was hard to watch, but still ground out the 3 points. And then today, pretty similar sort of thing. Masuaku's always been good for a trick on the ball, quite fast, can get some decent crosses, but he's always been a bit frail defensively. Lost the ball in the build-up for the Iheanacho to make it 3-1, and of course, throwing away nearly Leeds 2 games on the bounce. I think that teams are going to smell blood a little bit, and they went for it, scored, in the 90th minute, and nearly got a header at the end of the game. So, it's fun to be. It is fun to be a fan at the minute, playing some nice stuff. They're actually scoring some goals. I mean, if you'd said to me that West Ham will score 9 goals in 3 games against any team, even if it was, like Derby back in the 2000s when they got about 4 points or whatever it was, I would have been hard pushed to believe it. But yeah, I mean, you got to believe at some point. So what's the point? You might as well ride the wave. If they don't end up doing it, fine. But at least it's been an enjoyable season this time. They've got an identity. Moyes has got them very well structured. And I thought not having Antonio, not having a striker might be a little bit of a downfall, but they've just adapted the Man City kind of false 9 tactic, and that's the second time they've done it now. And we've not lost both times they've done it, and they've looked good on the ball. Don't get me wrong, second half they did look a bit tired, went 3-0 up. The 4th goal that was ruled out by VAR, rightly so as well, then just kind of took the wind out the sails a little bit, which was weird. Then, they go sort of make it 3-1, and it was a bit sort of harder for the remainder of the last 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, great time to be a Hammer. Lingard is, absolutely sensational. I think it was like 11 involvements in goals in 9 games. 3 assists and whatever the rest is, 8 goals. So I mean, his value, I presume, is going up. Whether they want to pay through the roof for him or not is another question entirely. I doubt it. It would have been nice to have something pre-agreed with United, but I don't think they wanted to. But I was speaking to my mate who's a Chelsea fan earlier. Shout out to mate Si if he's watching. And he was saying that that it's not sustainable. So he's started like Fernandes did halfway through the season. He's obviously kept himself fit, etc. And because of that, looks really, really fresh. Is he going to score or be involved in another 11 times in the next 6 games? Of course not. But if he can keep, even if he chips in with a couple of goals and a couple of assists in the next 7 games remaining, that still might be enough. Chelsea game is massive. If we get a draw there and don't lose, it's at home as well. In the reverse fixture, West Ham actually lost that 3-0. But they didn't. It was a weird game. We didn't deserve to lose 3-0. It was one of those kind of games, just a bit unlucky. But if you're a Hammers supporter or even a neutral, I think it's nice to see a different team in amongst it, like Leicester a few years ago when they ended up winning the title and being in and around it. It's just nice to see something different, I think. And at least the games are entertaining, banging a few goals, conceding a few goals, making it slightly more exciting and nerve-wracking than it needs to be. But, why not believe? 7 games left. Probably looking at getting 15 points or so to be, having to be around there, which is going to be a tough ask. But, we'll see what happens.
It's funny because the goalposts have moved now. I think West Ham have made themselves contenders for the top 4. And if you look at the table, from Leicester now in 3rd, right the way down to sort of 7th place, where I think Everton are with a couple of games in hand, it's so tight. There's only points between them. So, yeah, all to play for. What did you make of the game, Dave? I'm going to bring you in now. Did you see much of the Hammers game, and are they contenders for top 4?
Yeah, I saw pretty much the whole game. I saw that. I think in terms of their style of play, they've got a clear way they want to play now. I think maybe towards the end of the game, they're just starting to run out of legs a little bit, and I think that's probably where they're missing somebody in the centre of the park who can just kind of control play and actually distribute play and just keep a hold of the ball a little bit better, because I felt like as though it looked as though Leicester were growing in the ascendancy, and it looked clearly like they just, as soon as West Ham would get the ball back, it just go upfield and go straight back to Leicester, and they were struggling to keep a hold of it in that last sort of half an hour of the game, and it's where you started to think, oh, hang on a minute, like Leicester. As soon as they scored that goal, it looked like every time they went forward, there was going to be chances created, and I think you can be as well drilled unit as West Ham, but when you can't keep a hold of the ball, you are going to tire eventually, and I think that's probably where they are missing something in the middle of the park. Just to kind of, in a way, it's strange because they're probably a striker away and a brilliant midfielder who can actually, sit next to Declan Rice and, play the ball around the park from being like a Leicester, because they've got players who can score goals from wide areas. They've got a really well drilled defence. The goalkeeper, I think, is a good goalkeeper. They're probably not far away from being a really good team when you think about it. A striker in the midfield, I think. Personally.
Pretty bold statement to say they might be the new Leicester. Myles, are West Ham the new Leicester, and are they going to continue their assault on the top 4? What do you reckon?
It's funny because I think I said last week that as well as West Ham are doing, they're an injury to Mikel Antonio away from falling right off. That happened, and they didn't fall off. They won 2 games. And Declan Rice got injured too. So it'll be interesting to see if they can sustain it for the last few games. This mentality of it's okay to concede 2 every game because we'll score 3 is great for a neutral. But if that was my club, I'd be biting my nails every time I watch the game. I
can see John smiling as you're saying that.
But can they sustain it? Leicester look like they might be the ones to give it up now. You worry about them. After what happened last season, when they were nailed on for top 4, and then they just capitulated at the end of the season and lost out on the last day, you look like they were out of the conversation, Leicester. We just assumed top 3 is done, 4th is up for grabs. Now I look at it and think Leicester could finish as well 7th, realistically. So they need to pick their game up. Are West Ham the new Leicester? No one's ever going to replicate what Leicester have done over the last few years. I don't think they need to be the new Leicester. I think they just need to be consistent. And that's something West Ham have lacked for years. They've brought David Moyes back and he's doing a good job. So stick with it. I don't want them to do what they've done in the past and get ideas above their station and go, all right, well, we're in the top 4 now. Let's not trust David Moyes. Let's get rid of him and bring in a foreign coach that will take us a bit further and watch him drop that down. So they moved to the London Stadium for a reason. They always wanted to target this. Of course they could get it. They're a big club. It's a sustainable model for them. I agree with Dave. I think there are a couple of things in the spine that I would address. Antonio is fantastic, but has only become a striker over the last few years, really. And after him, they're having to play with that false 9 now, more out of choice. But Lingard scored more goals this season than he has ever in a Premier League season. And he scored his first goal in February. So that's amazing. If he's going to do that, fair play. I think I said to you guys, when they signed Lingard with a 3 million loan fee plus his wages, they were essentially paying 6 million to have someone for about 15 games. And I thought that was ridiculous at the time.
I think we all did.
Same, yeah.
From fourth, that was the best bargain of the season. I don't know how it's worked out. He's been fantastic.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out after the game had finished, what's different about this West Ham compared to previous seasons? Because they've always been flattering to deceive, haven't they? And David Moyes has got quite a reputation to repair, hasn't he, really? But he's come in and he's solidified what was quite a flimsy West Ham team. And I looked around the West Ham starting 11 without Declan Rice, let's face it, without Mikel Antonio, and they still had a core of players that were scrapping for every ball. They were playing a high line. They were trying to win back possession, and they were attacking with intent. And we haven't seen that for a number of years. So this was more like the Moyes Everton team, the closest thing I've seen to that since he's been in management and since he left Everton. He certainly didn't do it in any other teams he managed. From a West Ham supporters point of view, John, how do you see the differences that Moyes has made since his return to the club? What changes has he put in place to make them more like a David Moyes team?
I read a little post on a forum yesterday, actually, and there was a bit of a breakdown about some of the camaraderie amongst the team. I think that Declan Rice and Ryan Fredericks are randomly like really good mates. Obviously, Souček and Soufal both play for Czech Republic and are known to be pretty pally. Something that's rubbed off on the rest of the team is they were going in, Souček especially, on days off to train and things like that. And that started off sort of when he signed. That's then rubbed off onto some other players. People like Declan Rice have been staying in training a bit longer, been practicing like free kicks, penalties, that sort of thing. So it's just a mentality thing. I mean, you look at Ferguson, when Aguero scored, but this is in my head because I spoke about Aguero last week, when Aguero scored the goal to win the title against QPR. You look at a United team, they were terrible. Like on paper, they didn't really have any of the Hollywood kind of, they had the odd one, obviously, but if you actually look at the core of the team, it was either on its last legs or they had a lot of very average-ish players. But Ferguson, because of his mentality and the fact they just had the desire to win and always had the bit between their teeth, they would never, ever give up, and they played out of their skin pretty much every game. Because of that, I think that you take that person away and the mentality completely changes. So looking at what Moyes has done, it's a mentality thing. A couple of the signings have made a big difference. But even with Myles having a chat there, he's saying that it just feels like a different team. And it's right, it is. The mentality has changed. People want to play for, whether it's the team around them, there isn't a superstar player that they're paying 150 grand a week for no reason, just to try and get a name in. And, they've been very disciplined in the transfer market, not really spent a lot of money, swallowed their pride, especially with the Haller sale, for example, lost like 15, 20 million on it. And they were happy to do it and be like, look, we know what we've got. We've got some foundations of something good, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing because we believe it works. We believe we've got something that's going to do the business. And from all kind of aspects, it's a sum of all the parts. It's not any one player. I mean, you can argue Lingard has been fantastic, obviously, but previous to him coming in, the team looked very solid. There was never really a standout performer. They just work very hard for each other, and like you said a minute ago, Mike, they were putting themselves on the line and they were fighting for the balls and all that sort of stuff. And Martin Noble, let's be honest, he's 34. He's never been quick or anything, but he come in, and I was concerned in the Wolves game. Got quite a lot of talent. They'll pass around you, and obviously Traore, quite a lot of pace in there as well. But he was like one of the, I think from the stats, was like the top ball winner, most interceptions, one of the highest pass accuracies. And then today, didn't look out of his depth at all. And actually, I think it was Yuri Tillmans had a shot when he ended up injuring his arm somehow, I think, blocking that. And that was at 3-1. But sometimes you need a bit of that, But then up front attacking, they have got a bit of flair. Bowen's super fast. You got Lingard who's in the form of his life, and it just seems to be that everything together, including the management, they've got good backroom set up, the whole lot. Whatever reason,
there's just a character change. You can just see the mentality of the whole team change, and they aren't phased about being in charge of the game. Although it got to a point where they were 3-0 up and you could see them sort of wobbling a bit. That is kind of partly due to fatigue, I think, as well. But they bossed the game. And it's weird to say teams bossed the game when I think they had 36% possession. 4 shots on target out of 4 shots. That's the only shots they had. And they took 3 of them. So productive in front of goal. Everything about West Ham's play today was just positive from the offset. And fair play to them. They deserve to be where they are. And I think that's testament to what David Moyes has done. It's a mentality thing, like you said. It begs the question, though, now. We've got a top 4 race of, 5 teams that could get 2 positions, maybe even 6. Who are you picking to pick those last 2 places in the top 4? I'll start with you, Dave. What do you reckon after United and City? Who are 3rd and 4th for you?
I hate to say it, but I think it'll probably be Chelsea and Liverpool. I think Liverpool will probably get that last spot. Pains me to say it, but I think
It's funny because I'm still counting Liverpool out. I think because Chelsea have got back to their winning ways. They've responded really well to getting thumped the other day. And they've just smashed in the Champions League and in the Premier League consecutively in the same week. And that's what they needed. So I think Chelsea are right back on track. So for me, it's Chelsea. But for 4th, I think it's anybody's game. I think the Hammers are up there. I think Everton could sneak it. They've got 2 games in hand, I think, of their rivals. So I could see an Everton 4th place as well. So yeah, it's really open. I do think Chelsea are still the team to beat to get 3rd place. But beyond that, it's great to see as a neutral. What are you saying then, Myles? Have you got anything different to what me and Dave have said for 3rd and 4th place?
I think, despite the fact that I think in the middle of that, John was comparing David Moyes to Alex Ferguson, and we all know that can't go wrong, can it? We've never seen that go wrong before. Despite that, I'm saying Chelsea 3rd and Leicester just about scrape 4th.
Wow. So you're keeping Leicester in there. I think we're all kind of agreed.
I really want to see them get 4th. I love the way Leicester play, and I think they've got some incredible players. And I think Rodgers is doing a really good job. So just get it done. Just do it. I want to see them.
I think they've got arguably one of the best midfields in the Premier League. Leicester
City.
I
Unbelievable.
mean, without Maddison today, which really, really held them back. You could tell they had no creativity in the final third. And West Ham just found it easy to absorb any pressure right up until the very last minute when it got nervy. But they're really missing James Maddison. He needs to come back into the team. But they're in trouble. They're sliding. I really do think Leicester are in trouble of slipping out the top 4. There's some big teams below them waiting to pounce, as we know. So, yeah, it's a tight one for me. I would love to see Leicester in there, I think, as a guy from Leicester. But it's going to be a tough one for them. On the next games, though, I think West Ham are playing Newcastle, I believe, which is always a nice game. I think they're
a couple of games.
So, yeah, there's a few fixtures that you look at ahead and think, do you know what, that could change the course of everything. Have you got any preference for third and fourth? Obviously, you're saying the Hammers are going to be there, but who's going to join them in the Champions League places, John?
Who's going to join them? I was going to start playing the theme tune from Spotify or something. It would be amazing for them to do it because it just, again, breaks the norm, doesn't it? You're not seeing the same teams every season. You look over a course of a long period of time, it was between Spurs and Arsenal, mind the gap, all the memes around that for getting into the Champions League. Liverpool, probably, you've got to say, are going to be there or thereabouts. But, West Ham have got to play Chelsea in a couple of weeks' time, so that's actually a massive game. The Leicester game was massive today. It's like a 6-pointer, isn't it? Like any of those sort of games are. So I think in a few weeks when we reconvene after the West Ham-Chelsea game, that will be probably a clearer identification. But we're seeing teams bounce back or fall off the wagon a little bit, from a loss. They, have the next day off, they come back, the manager berates them a little bit or whatever it is, or they just sit down and have a chat and say, look, this is where it went wrong. We can't afford to do that in the next 4 games. And then whoever does lose and look like they might have slipped out of the places, go and win the next 4 games and, do it on goal difference or whatever. So it's exciting because it is so open. In my heart of hearts, do I think that West Ham are going to do it? No, I don't. Genuinely. I think that there's too much quality around them. I would absolutely love them to, and I think a lot of neutrals would for something a bit different. But probably, it's really Leicester's and Chelsea's to kind of lose, I would say. But I guess, ask me again in a few weeks and I'll let you know. I want to believe.
Believe me, mate. I will ask you in a few weeks because I think it will still be a question mark in the next 2-3 games. I don't think it'll be settled anytime soon, which is great again for the neutral. Not so much for you right in the thick of it, mind you. So I'll ask the question about Jesse Lingard because his future's unclear. Although I get the feeling United are obviously going to want to keep him now. I'll ask you first, Dave. If they keep Jesse Lingard, where will he play in this United team? Does he fit into this United team? And also, I'll go to you, John, after that, just to think about how much it would cost to prize Lingard away from Manchester United at the moment. So, Dave, Jesse Lingard, has he got a future at United? What's your feeling?
Do I think he'll be at United next season? No. Just for the plain, simple fact that we've got too much quality in that area to accommodate him, and he's going to want to play games. He's at an age now, where he's at the peak of his career, and he's going to want to play as much football as he can. And obviously, as we know, career in football is not a long career at all, and you want to get as many minutes out of yourself as you can. Really, I think he'll be a valuable player if we do keep him, but I just don't think we will. I think we'll probably say that we want to keep him to drive his value up, and someone will come in, either whether it's West Ham or somebody else, and pay 25 million, which I'd be happy with 25 million for him, really, or 20 million even that.
Yeah.
Because before this little stint with West Ham, we probably wouldn't even got 10 million for him. It just wasn't. It just didn't look like that the sort of player that.
No, but in fairness to Jesse Lingard, he was struggling a lot personally. He had a lot going on. I think the club shielded him from the public when he was going through his worst sort of personal problems. He needed to move away, and I'm gobsmacked at how well it's worked out at West Ham for everybody, because United get a player who's now worth a considerable amount more than he was. The Hammers get a player that's driven them basically into the top 4 or in contention for a top 4 place. I think and Jesse Lingard could get in the England squad still. So, everybody wins out of this move.
Yeah, I think touching upon what John was saying earlier in the season, they played Chelsea and they lost 3-0, and there was a point where Chelsea completely didn't deserve to go ahead in that game. West Ham were all over them at one point, but West Ham just didn't have that sort of quality to create something. They were missing that final link. And I think what Lingard offers in that team, he actually offers a quicker transition up the field, and that's where they're scoring goals now. He's actually linking play and getting the ball into those areas, and he's getting onto the end of chances. And you didn't really see that before. So, yeah,
before I go to you, John, I'll just go to Myles quickly, because I can see you sort of nodding to some of the things that we're saying. If Jesse Lingard was to be a United player next season, where would you play him? Whose place does he take, Myles?
Honest answer is I don't think he will be. From what I understand, I think he's only got a year left on his deal as well. So this rise in value that we're talking about probably isn't that much of a rise anyway. I think his contract was due to expire this summer, but United always put in that clause of, but we can add 1 year if we want to, and I think they exercised that. So I think getting him out of United won't be that difficult. He's never going to play as the number 10, not while Bruno is there. Van der Beek's seen how difficult that is this year, so I can't see him fitting in. If he was to stay, he'd probably be utilised on the right-hand side of the front 3, which we saw him do a few times when Solskjaer first came in. When Solskjaer first came in and they won on that really long winning run, Lingard was there. He was playing. And he was a really good player because, like Dave says, that is one of his skills. His transition from back to front is brilliant. And that goal he scored the other night against Wolves, where he just carries the ball at the pitch, I've seen him do that for United. One springs to mind of, I remember he scored a goal against Watford a couple of seasons back. And absolutely outstanding solo goal where he just picks the ball up and he'll run with it because he is very direct and he'll look forward. So he'll make a good asset for a team around that kind of 4th to 8th block that are competing for Europa League. He won't be back at United next season. I'd be really surprised if he was, because he doesn't want to sit on the bench, and they'll want to get some money for him before his contract's up.
Well, that's why I say it's a win-win for everybody involved, and I think I agree with Dave, really. His value's gone up maybe 10 million quid. It's maybe worth 25 million pounds now. So United, I think, would probably snap anyone's hand off for that kind of money. Yeah, John, what would you be willing to pay for Jesse Lingard to keep him in your team? And do you think he's worth keeping in the team? Silly question, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to Matt Logan earlier as well, and he said that the Lingard signing works. I think it's like a good fit. The kind of player being in the prime, had a year where he weren't really doing a lot apart from making cup appearances, and had a lot going on outside of his football as well. So fair play to him for taking the plunge, on moving on, going out on loan and putting in the performances that he has. But I think to start with, it was only people were sort of saying, 10 games ago when he first started, if it works out and he does all right, rather than this, ridiculous kind of Messi and Ronaldo-esque form, he's going to be, about 10 million pounds maybe because of the last year in his contract, all that kind of stuff. And then now people are saying, there might be a bidding more. It's going to be 20, 25, 30 million pound for him. So because there's been no pre-agreed deal, and fair play for United for having a bit of shrewd business sense to not put anything cheap in there. He's definitely driving his value up. He's doing himself no disservice whatsoever. But as I said, this form isn't sustainable. Maybe he might become a wizard and do it until the end of the season, which we will get fourth place if that happens. Any player, look at Bruno Fernandes when he come in and the start of the year is banging in goals for fun, or doing ridiculous assists. So if he can continue what he's doing now for the next 7 games, then yes, West Ham will definitely be in the top 4. But I can't. The problem is I can't see it happening. Maybe for a couple of games or whatever. But his value has gone up. Don't know how much he'd be prepared to pay. 20, 25 million is probably wins for all parties, I would say. But then does he come in, get a good contract, and then next season is a shadow of what he was because he's got what he wants now. He's playing. He knows he's going to get regular game time because he would be one of West Ham's best players comfortably. Then his form dips. I mean, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. I hope that doesn't happen, and he is genuinely enjoying it. But personally, I think if they can get him for around 20, 25 million, that isn't bad, I don't think, at all.
No.
Do you know one thing, though, that I think with Lingard that will benefit West Ham massively? As good as his form is, who else takes him right now? Because who else needs that player? If he is going to be as a number 10, if you look at all the clubs that would probably fit the profile of someone like Lingard, they've all kind of got someone very established in that place already. So West Ham really... He knows the club. He knows David Moyes. He's having a good time there. He obviously gets along with the likes of Declan Rice and Bowen. You can see that already. Leicester wouldn't take him because they've got Maddison. Spurs wouldn't take him because they're playing Kane deeper and they've got that midfield. Can't imagine him wanting to drop down to Arsenal at the moment and they wouldn't spend the money. So that sort of profile of club.
Drop down to Arsenal. It's true.
Say that.
Say that.
That's right.
And Villa wouldn't because he's got Jack.
Yeah, I think that's probably why he's going to struggle to get the England squad still as well, because there are a lot of players who are very similar to that. And we talked about that a few weeks ago, didn't we? But you know what? Whatever happens, he's had his form recovered massively. He's back to some kind of like top table sort of football now, and he's playing like a player that's had a monumental, life-changing, completely changed his mentality towards the game. And good luck to him. I think a lot of people have got a lot of hate towards Jesse Lingard just because of who he is and what he does and how he winds people up. But when he's on your team and he's doing that, it's actually really, good to see.
That's the point. He's playing like Messi and Ronaldo now.
I'm talking about form, not you know what I mean, though.
No, he's been a quality player in flashes for United. He's been great for England, I think, overall. But for West Ham, he's been fantastic. So if he finds a home there, I think we'll all be quite happy for him. And I think if West Ham can get top 4 as well, based on his kind of form, I can't see how he can go anywhere else but West Ham, to be fair. Yeah. So fair play to him. Let's
be real, we all love football, and it's nice to see players doing well. I mean, I know we're going to be talking about Mbappé and bits in a little while, but anyone that does something that's outrageous, you just got to love it, haven't you? Like, it's just that's part of the love for the game. Like, we've seen the things today with the United and Spurs game where people are diving when they get in touch and goals, this and that, for stuff like that. That is not it. I think things like that are ridiculous. But when players are playing out of their skin, banging in goals or doing mega assists, like that's what you want to see. You know, it's entertaining. That's what it's about.
Well, it's like you knew what was coming next there, John, because I'm going to go straight to Dave now and talk about the United game, which was a frustrating watch for the first half. Spurs were very Mourinho-esque, weren't they? They were set up in a way just to frustrate. They weren't there to play football. What did you make of it, Dave? Did you manage to contain your anger? And was the result better than what the game kind of suggested it was going to be in the end?
Yeah. When first halves are that frustrating, I can't make myself watch the reaction at half time because of how annoyed and angry I already am. So I just
that's all of us, mate.
then tune into the second half, and thankfully it was like black and white. We were a completely different team. That's probably one of the best halves we've played all season. It says a lot about us, really, because with United at the minute, it's just a real mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get some weeks. And I really won't put it as past us not beating Burnley next week now. We're just one of those teams you don't know what you're going to get sometimes. And we have played in periods throughout this season where we've probably been a little bit fortunate to win games. Like we were against Villa early in the season. We were under the cosh for a lot of that second half where we went and got like a jammy penalty and won 2-1. But it's nice to see like there's obviously a spirit there within that team. You know, that we don't seem like we're not an easy. We don't kind of roll over, and when things aren't going our way, like in that second half, the Mourinho teams are infuriating to watch. They just, you know, jump on the floor with the slightest touch and trying to wind the opposition players up, trying to get McTominay sent off. It is really annoying. But yeah, I think there was I think a real positive to see today. Pogba was out of this world in that second half. I think when he plays like that, I think you've got to say he's probably the best midfielder in the league alongside De Bruyne.
It was unplayable at times today.
When he's in that kind of mood, you can't do anything against him. He just dominates. He completely dominates the opposition. And I think that's nice that we've got that. Him and Bruno complement each other quite nicely. I think sometimes we find it difficult to play them both in the same team because like you saw in the first half, we kind of played Pogba off of the left. And obviously had Bruno operating in the hole. And because of that, we didn't really have that width that Rashford offers on the left and offering those sort of runs into the channel. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to see how they're going to fit into the same team. I think we might be able to do it eventually, but we need a midfielder who's going to be able to be good enough to sit in the Fred role. Because personally, I think Fred had a good second half today, but he's just not consistent enough.
He makes too many mistakes as well. We need Declan Rice in midfield for United. That's what we need.
You don't know what you're going to get from him. Like one game, he'll be doing brilliantly, and he'll misplace 5-yard passes and just pass them out for throwing. How on earth is he doing that?
That in microcosm today, I literally was sat watching the game with Naya's dad, and I said to him, "Fred's dreadful, isn't he? Like he tries hard, he runs around a lot." But he's dreadful. He can't play a simple pass. He gets everything wrong. I walked out of the room to get a drink, walked back in, Fred had just scored. Of course he is. That's just Fred all over, isn't it?
He's a Solskjaer favourite, though, because he does a job and he's a hard-working player, and that's difficult to get in a midfielder, that kind of graft, you know. Funny that he's Brazilian. Go on, Dave.
I don't want to become that Arsenal fan who's settled for good. Yeah, he can do a job because I'm not being.
No, I agree.
We're Man United, at the end of the day, we're Man United. You know, one of the biggest clubs in the world still, even though we've not won anything in the last 3 years. I don't want to sink to those levels where we're thinking, oh, Wan-Bissaka, you know, he can do a job in that role. McTominay can do a job in that role. Yeah. We're not. We should be having the best players in these positions. Whether we have to go out there and pay 70, 80 million for the best players in the world, it's what Man City are doing. They've got 50, 60 million pound players sitting on their bench.
Of course they have, yeah. Well, that's the thing. We go for someone like Declan Rice, we get the English tax, and he's suddenly a £100 million player because he's English. So
it's what I was saying to one of my mates today is it's the same faces that aren't at the go straight away from the off that are letting us down. And it's often Fred, Lindelof, or Wan-Bissaka. Like he just sometimes looks like he's just got out of bed. Wan-Bissaka, like he's just not. He's not with it straight away.
And he makes mistakes to go with it as well. It almost is like he's still not woken up yet.
Well, that Spurs goal said everything really about our defence. It's just lapses in concentration. It was easily avoidable. I'm not even going to talk about Lindelof missing that.
The touch from Kane was amazing. Kane's touch there was beautiful football. I don't know what Lindelof attempted to stop it with, but it was a phenomenal ball. It does deserve some credit.
I think that to be fair to Solskjaer today, got to give him credit for his subs because Greenwood came on and absolutely decided the game really in those assists, and with his goal at the end, I I think we've managed him quite well. I don't think he was brilliant against Granada in the week. I think he tried to do a little bit too much.
He does that a lot.
Yeah, I think when he's that front man, which he wasn't today, he was playing off of the right. I think he feels almost like as though he should be, scoring with every shot he has and trying to create goals on his own. When he plays a little bit more simple, he's just going to be really effective with that ball for Cavani that you saw. That's not been the first cross he's had this season as well like that.
He just needs to mature a little bit, Greenwood, doesn't he? I think this talk that you hear it everywhere. Greenwood is the best finisher that Man United have got. Greenwood has the best shooting ability of anyone at Man United. You hear it so often that he's heard it. And every time he gets the ball, he thinks, I'm going to shoot, which can be great. And if you want to be that kind of number 9, it can work. But I look at Man City this season, for example, they will always take the easiest option to goal. I think about Jesus' goal last week in particular. He broke, thought about shooting instead, squared it to Sterling. Then all of a sudden the angle closed off for Sterling. He thought, okay, I'm going to roll it back to him. So there is a time to be selfish and there's a time to be more pragmatic with, okay, let's just get the goal. And when Greenwood learns that a bit more of, okay, I could shoot here, but maybe I would have a better opportunity if I squared it, I think he'll be devastating. I really like that.
I think it's naivety though, isn't it? He's not really thinking that way yet. That will just come with time. I'm sure Solskjaer's conditioning him to be that kind of striker. But contrast that with Edinson Cavani's performance today. Talking about a world-class finisher, he was fantastic. And his first goal that was disallowed was so good to watch. And the way he finished it was fantastic. I was gutted that it was cancelled out. And you could see his face. He was just going, why? Why are you doing this? So I'll go back to you, Myles. What do you make of Cavani's performance? But also, what was Son doing?
I don't even want to talk about what Son was doing. It really disappointed me because I can't stand Spurs anymore, to be honest. I think I spent too long in a household full of Arsenal fans. But yeah, I can't stand Spurs anymore. And I'll get some brownie points for saying that. But I've always really admired Son. I think he's such a good footballer. He's so direct. He can shoot with both feet. He's brilliant. That Mourinho said in that Amazon documentary, as soon as he got there, that he wanted to teach them all how to be, I can't remember what the word he used was, but make them harsher, basically. Yeah. And you see that in Son. And I'm a bit disappointed in that. It was pathetic. It was absolutely pathetic. And to me, the decision was even worse than going down. You see players go down for everything. But it was clear. He put his arm across McTominay, and McTominay tries to swipe it away.
Yeah.
Misses, and his arm just keeps going. To me,
it gives him a little flick in the face as well. He goes to ground and has treatment for about 3 minutes, from what I remember. But that's not on, is it?
I don't want to talk about that for too long because that's not good football. That's not what we want to care about. No. What we want to care about is what happened afterwards. And Cavani showed exactly why he's at Man United and why people were going, oh, the best thing they can do is sign a 35-year-old Edinson Cavani or however old he is. That's why. His movement is so intelligent. And Dave said about Pogba and Fernandes being complementary in some ways. Pogba is someone who plays well with good footballers. And for too long at Man United, he's not had good footballers there. He's had people with raw ability, like Rashford and Martial, who are just quick. But if you have an intelligent footballer, Pogba's perfect. Look at him at Juve. The midfield he had at Juve was Vidal and Pirlo. The match made in heaven, that. And he wasn't the star. He's happy to let Fernandes be the star because then every defender gravitates towards him, gives Pogba that space. And Cavani timed that run so beautifully. I thought he was offside at first. And you watch it, he's a mile on, and he knows it.
You can see his eyes darting everywhere, though. His eyes are always looking for the run. He's always bending his run on the last man. And that diving header as well for his second goal, you could see him darting in that position because he knew that ball was going to end up there. And, credit to, I think it was Luke Shaw for the assist for picking him out. It's fantastic, wasn't it?
The thing with Cavani as well, and I think it will be interesting to see whether this has a lasting impact even beyond this season if he does go, is Martial and Rashford have been playing number 9 at Man United since Lukaku dropped out of the team, but neither of them are your archetypal number 9. So they don't make the runs that you need a number 9 to make. They're a bit lazy with it. They'd rather pick the ball up deep and run it 4 defenders. But look how simple it is for Cavani. He hasn't got pace, really. But he knows, if I move to this front post now, I'll score a goal. It might not be as flashy as Rashford trying to beat 3 men, but it works. And if they can learn that instinct from him and just analyse that movement and go, okay, maybe if I make this run here, then they'll benefit from it too. I think Cavani's outstanding. I love watching him play football.
Yeah.
You don't get many number 9s like Cavani anymore. Icardi at PSG is quite similar, but other than that, everyone else has got something else. That's what Cavani is. He's just got a deadly instinct. I love it. I feel it's brilliant.
He's a massive focal point, I think, when he plays. Everything goes through usually Pogba and Fernandes, but he's always there waiting for something. And like you said, quality recognises quality. They're always looking for somebody to be on the end of it. He's usually there. And I think we're looking at goal involvements for Jesse Lingard since he's been there. Cavani's goal involvements for his time at United are going to be through the roof. I don't think he's going to sign a new contract, though. I think he's looking to go back to South America, which is a real shame. So it might be like a Henrik Larsson-style short-term stint at the club, but make a huge impact. If that's the case, what a legacy to leave. But quality player and deservedly man of the match, I think, today for United in a really, really difficult game. I will say as well about the tactics Spurs were deploying from Mourinho. United really held their head in the second half pretty well. I thought they were going to lose their cool, and I would probably have put money on somebody being sent off at some point. It didn't happen. They actually managed the game really well, and I, as a United fan, haven't seen that enough from them this season. They look pretty disciplined, and in the end, I think it was Spurs that were pretty frustrated. So fair play to Solskjaer for getting the substitutions right, but also drilling his players to sort of see out the game, and they did quite comfortably in the end. So happy days. Dave, anything to add to United?
I think I agree with what Myles is saying there about Cavani. It's strange with United in strikers because arguably we've not had a sort of player with that sort of movement as a striker since Chicharito, who could actually snuff out where the ball was going to land in the box. And he's just got that instinct. And it's something you can't really teach with players, or players find it really difficult to pick up the knack of making those runs. And it's really disappointing because I feel a little bit sorry for before we had Cavani. We've had obviously players like Greenwood last year. He obviously scored 70 goals in all competitions. You don't really want to leave the onus on an 18-year-old to be scoring you those sort of goals, because Martial and Rashford haven't ever been those sort of strikers or been an out-and-out striker. And it's just something that you think if we don't keep Cavani, who are they going to go for? Because if they don't get Haaland, who's your next out-and-out striker who's absolutely going to score you over 30 goals a season? It's going to be Kane, and that's it. And 150 million, because that's what Daniel Levy will ask for Harry Kane, and United aren't going to pay that.
No. Well, United need an out-and-out striker when Mason Greenwood is potentially the next one to step into that role. He's as good as finishing as anyone when he's on his game, but he's still learning. I think he's got the potential to be a number 9 rather than a wide player. I think you'd probably agree with that too. Can you not see Mason Greenwood taking on the number 9 role?
I think he will. He will be a centre forward, 100%. Probably more in the ilk of like a Rooney, as though he can do everything. He can obviously create chances. He can score goals. Can I see him scoring Ronaldo, Messi sort of goals, or Lewandowski sort of level of goals a season? Probably not, just because I think he's a bit more of an all-rounder. And he did that for United in the academy. He was known for being a bit more of a 10 in that sort of, and then he was thrust up into the number 9 position. He scored, all sorts of goals. So, like you say, it's difficult to see where they're going to go, really, because, dealing with Daniel Levy, no one really likes to do it at Spurs. Can I see Harry Kane leaving just Tottenham this year? Probably not, because I don't think anyone will pay the money for him.
I don't think many teams can afford someone like Harry Kane. I think they're valuing him at like 100+ million, maybe 120, something like that. We had this conversation about Mbappé earlier in the series, didn't we? That he's that kind of money. Who can afford it? You're looking at someone like Man City. Is he going to go to another Premier League club? Probably not. Will he go abroad and go to somebody who can afford him abroad? PSG and play for Pochettino? Maybe, potentially. Will he enjoy it? Probably not. It's the French league. So he's in a tough position. You can see his frustrations playing in the system that Spurs sometimes play in. And I think he's better when he's more free-flowing with somebody like Son bombing alongside him, and Lucas as well, who is a front three. They're some of the most potent in English football, definitely. And they haven't been as free-flowing as they should be, Spurs lately.
He's probably got more chance of winning a cup with England than he has Tottenham, let's be honest. That's saying a lot.
Probably, but where's he going to go? Who knows? But we need to move on, guys, into some other conversation now because we have spoken about the Premier League a lot. Loads to cover, which is good to see. But I'll move on to sort of European football now, and maybe the Champions League. We'll start with that. There's a quarter-final first legs. Just to jog your memory, I think Chelsea easily saw off Porto in their game. That was quite a good one to start with, I think. Mason Mount, did you see his goal? Fantastic sort of swivel, turn and finish. We were talking about him for England a few weeks ago. He has come on so much in recent weeks. I'll start with you, John. Did you see the Chelsea game and Mason Mount? What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, I watched the highlights. One of my good mates, I supports Chelsea, so I always have an eye on them. And obviously, with the race for the top 4 in the Premiership, I've got a keen eye on sort of who's doing what. But yeah, Mount, he scored a goal for England as well, didn't he? That was a pretty tidy finish for someone that you wouldn't really associate with a lot of composure in front of goal. But yeah, really, really smart turn and finish. Chelsea again looked very, very solid. It's nice that it's another English player that's doing well and hitting a bit of form. But yeah, Chelsea in general, the change in manager, I was a little bit sceptical of in the beginning because I thought they should give Lampard for what he'd done for the club a bit more time. But it's one of those decisions that have just worked out really, really well. They've lost one game in however many years, was it like 16, 17 matches now? And that was a really odd defeat to West Brom. But, the Champions League bounced back, winning 2-0 away from home is a fantastic result. They are a joy to watch again like they used to be a few years ago. And the start of Lampard's reign where they went on this 14-game unbeaten run or whatever it was. So, yeah, it's again, you like seeing players and teams do well, especially English teams in Europe. And, yeah, it's a decent result all round. And if an England player's doing well, like Harry Kane smashing in goals, so that's for Tottenham. You like seeing it because hopefully they can then bring that kind of form or just the positivity around the dressing room and stuff and to the England camp, and they might go on and do something,
Well, you say that as well. The other goal scorer for Chelsea was Ben Chilwell. It was his first Champions League goal.
It's like around the keeper. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, playing like a striker or a winger or something, but no, he took it really well. So from an English player's point of view, it can only give them sort of loads of confidence going into a tournament. So it kind of benefits the country and the national team when the clubs are going far in Europe. And I think if the players actually play for similar teams as well, it helps as well because we don't want any divides or rifts. So, looks pretty good so far. And I think Chelsea potentially in a Champions League semi-final spot, it's looking like that, is kind of unthinkable when you think of the end of Frank Lampard's tenure and the kind of football they were playing then. But Thomas Tuchel's really turned them around. And I'm keen to get your take on it, Myles. What has he done to the club to make them on this run they're on? Obviously, bar that blip against West Brom. How are they potentially a Champions League semi-finalist and 4th or 3rd place in the Premier League?
The Champions League semi-finalist thing, I think, can be attributed to a fairly kind draw. I feel a bit harsh saying that. Porto obviously did well to knock out Juventus. And to be fair, I actually don't think it was as easy for Chelsea the other night as maybe we're suggesting. Porto had twice as many attempts on goal as Chelsea, and they were without their best player in midfield in Oliveira because he was suspended from what happened in the Juve game. So I think, obviously, Chelsea did well to get the result, particularly away from home, and it gives them a good position to go back to Stamford Bridge with. They will now, though, face, I believe, PSG or Bayern in the semi-finals, and that would be really tough for them to overcome. Well, he's solidified that that's the first thing that they needed. Chelsea have got a wealth of attacking talent. We know that. They spent big on it in the summer. Havertz yesterday against Crystal Palace showed the kind of player that we would expect of him with the kind of money that he moved for. Werner might not be scoring the goals, but he does play quite good football for them. And Mount, obviously, has excelled. So I think really the main thing for Tuchel was just putting in the basics that Lampard was kind of overlooking. Lampard wanted to invest in that youth and get that atmosphere there, but then was just kind of ignoring discipline a little bit at the back, it seemed. So I think Tuchel's kind of tightened them up quite a lot. I think he's picked a solid kind of back pairing of Rudiger and Christensen for most games, and when they strayed from that, we saw what happened against West Brom. So I think it should have been an easy job for Tuchel, to be honest. Chelsea had a good squad. He's an experienced manager. I think it was a good fit. It's one of those where I can see it working. Whether that lasts long term will be interesting. But I'm interested to see Chelsea in the Champions League this season. If they can go and look, yes, it will be a hard tie against PSG or Bayern. But if they can go in and upset that, then all of a sudden they're one game away from winning it. That's mad. But who knows?
That's crazy. I'll go on to Liverpool next because they were roundly beaten by Real Madrid 3-1. Some uncharacteristic displays there from what we've seen from Liverpool of the last 2 seasons, that's for sure. We spoke about Trent Alexander-Arnold in some depth on this pod, but he was all at sea. The front line did not look threatening at all, not as cohesive as they have been in the last couple of seasons. And Madrid just had a great game against them. It was the kind of game they needed as well. It was quite a kind one for them. Dave, what did you make of the Liverpool game? Why 3-1? Was that a reflection of the game that you saw? Were they that bad?
Yeah, I think I was being kind, to be honest. I think Real Madrid had chances. It could have been 5-1, and Liverpool could have looked back and thought, they might be thinking now we're lucky to still be in this because Madrid did. There were so many defensive errors, so many. It was unbelievable. And it wasn't just from Trent; it was from Kabach. I think Kabach had one where he just and
Phillips
as well. Both horrendous.
And they just should have scored. Asensio should have scored that chance. They were all at sea, and it was. We've seen Liverpool be that bad, not quite that bad defensively this season, but there's been lapses. But that is probably the worst game they've played defensively all season. And
they were exposed ruthlessly, really.
You could say about Trent, there's no denying his attacking quality, and obviously we saw it again against Villa. But even against Villa, he looked average, poor. I'd go as far as saying. Probably lucky not to give a penalty away as well. If Trezeguet goes down there, it's a penalty. Obviously talking about Madrid, you've got to give them credit, really. It was like watching Kroos, Casemiro and Modric. That trio is probably one of the best midfields we've seen for decades, really.
Yeah.
They absolutely controlled that area of the park, and it's really satisfying on the eye watching Modric and Kroos playing. It pains me to say that United could have had Kroos. Apparently, David Moyes had agreed to sign Toni Kroos from Bayern Munich, and Louis van Gaal came in and decided against it. And that's why
it's ridiculous. Can you imagine the difference he could have made? He's been fantastic. He just runs the show.
But yeah, Toni Kroos has admitted to that. He basically said the contract was sorted. United. It came to Van Gaal. We didn't hear anything from United. Ancelotti got in touch from Real Madrid and so pains me to say it. Yeah, but I think Vinicius, he looked really threatening all game. He was tight. They couldn't deal with him. His runs down the flanks and through the middle, through those channels. They really couldn't deal with him. And Vinicius is a strange player because he's not actually known for being a clinical forward. He doesn't actually. He misses a lot of easy chances.
Do you remember earlier in the season? Do you remember early in the season in the Champions League when Benzema was seen at halftime talking about Vinicius in French and saying, "Don't pass the ball to him. I swear he's playing against us." And then look at Liverpool.
He's a bit hit and miss, but he's learning his trade still. He's quite young, but he reminds me a bit of how Bruno Fernandes' success rate for passes is 60-40 maybe. Some of them will be like, what the hell are you doing? But every now and again, he'll go and do this Hollywood ball that will just split a defence open, or he'll make a run that has just completely annihilated a defensive position as well. And Vinicius was a bit like that against Liverpool. Sometimes you're just thinking, oh, come on, man. But then other times he just completely embarrassed the Liverpool team. And I think that might be partly down to Liverpool's terrible defensive confidence at the minute. But he's a quality player, Vinicius.
I think, it's just...
Sorry, Dave.
Strange one with Madrid because you looked early on in the season. There was talk of Zidane getting sacked because they were absolutely all over the place, Real Madrid, and they couldn't win in the league. They were showing poor performances in the Champions League. They obviously lost to Shakhtar, didn't they, in the group stages? And And yeah, it's all of a sudden it's starting to come together for them. They beat Barcelona at the weekend, and now they're 3 points off of Atletico. And you're looking all of a sudden, you're thinking Atletico can't win games at all at the minute.
No,
all of a sudden, it's looking like Real Madrid might win the league, and they might be on the verge of making another Champions League final. So a bit of a strange
crazy
season,
season. I'm going to move on to Borussia Dortmund, Man City, because I mean City were fairly comfortable. But there was a flashpoint we've all talked about where Jude Bellingham apparently fouled Ederson.
Yeah,
and it was actually more like the other way around. Ederson took a chunk out of Jude Bellingham, who, for the record, was fantastic. Another English player playing fantastically well deep into a European competition. But what did you make of Borussia Dortmund and Man City, John? Do you think City are looking like the favourites that they've been made?
City have been favourites in pretty much anything for a number of years now, and they never really deliver. When you go back a few years when they first started on their kind of European trials after they won the Premier League and that, and for whatever reason, it just didn't, the football they were playing, whether it's a confidence thing or an experience at that level, they just didn't really do anything. They were losing against teams they shouldn't have lost against, conceding late equalisers or late, winners against them. Are they favourites? I think you look at PSG and Bayern. I know they're playing each other, obviously. But, I mean, one of them, whoever goes through that tie, has got to be, in my opinion, the favourite. They've spent a lot of money on players as well, and they keep pumping millions every season. There's someone else they bring in for 40, 50, 60 million. It's good. It was a good game. Like Foden had a few chances that I thought he probably should have put away, in fairness.
We've got into some good positions as well. Like another English player actually doing all right in the latter stages of the European competition can't be a bad thing, can it?
I mean, they're obviously confident. They've got an identity and have done for a number of years now, where it's the short kind of style passing. I think Myles mentioned the Gabriel Jesus goal where he passed it out to Sterling because he didn't have a shot on. They're very patient and deliberate in everything they do. And obviously KDB is like Toni Kroos. He's just an animal with passing the ball, like his vision and all that kind of stuff is literally like unprecedented. But they were comfortable until they weren't. And to be honest, when they did concede the goal, I thought this is going to be maybe one of those ones where they've conceded an away goal. They go to Dortmund and end up losing 1-0 or whatever, and looking good probably for the loss, but just can't carve out a decent chance, or someone like Sterling goes through and puts it in the side netting or whatever. So they've always been a bit like that. I don't know why. I mean, look at the weekend against Leeds. They only conceded 2 shots but still lost. Probably the greatest smash and grab in Premier League history. But they look good until they don't. They're a very odd team. They could win 4-5-0 literally every game, but they obviously don't. And as soon as they concede or have a chance against them, they just seem a bit like, so
if they get through, I think they're against Real Madrid potentially. Obviously, if they see the job through against Liverpool, that'll be an interesting matchup, won't it? Man City, Real Madrid, real test of their credentials.
Very, very strong midfielders, and then up front could be, anything could happen. So, I mean, the game could end up being 0-0 with a plethora of chances, but no one actually puts anything away, or someone could end up sort of smashing the other team 3-0. So, if that is what happens, it'd be really interesting to see. But I mean, Dortmund are no mugs. That'll be they've got an away goal. If they win 1-0, they go through. So that'll be again quite interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, Dortmund have got an interesting season because in the Bundesliga they're really struggling. So I think their entire season rests on them going far in this competition. So interesting one. I'll finish off with the Champions League on PSG Bayern. What a cracking game! First of all. I thought PSG were the best I've seen them in the latter stage of a competition for a long time. And I think Thomas Tuchel was the previous manager for PSG, and I don't think this was a blend of players that suited his style of play. Pochettino, on the other hand, seems like he's getting a song out of Neymar and Mbappé playing together, and their front play was fantastic. And we're going to talk about Mbappé in a moment, but the way he bent his runs and beat the last man, turned and just sprinted basically was scary to watch. And you can see the Bayern players in defence just never faced things like this on a weekly basis in the Bundesliga. So for me, I think PSG are one of those dark horses that potentially, again, like City, could finally win the competition they want so badly. I'm really impressed with the way they managed the game against Bayern, because for the most part, Bayern actually were in control. They had most of the chances. But when PSG had the ball, they moved through the gears really quickly. And to have someone like Mbappé on the end of it was a dream for them. It just suited their counter-attacking system really, really well. So what did you make of PSG and their chances? Can Bayern turn it around? Dave, I'll start with you. What did you see from the game? Did you see potential Champions League winners in PSG?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ifs and buts, I think, in this one for the second leg. They couldn't deal with Mbappe in that first 25, 30 minutes. They just couldn't track him, couldn't track his runs, they couldn't stop him, they couldn't stop. There was a big gap in front of that defence. It was a huge hole, which Neymar was getting into those channels and feeding the ball into Mbappe, and they just didn't know how to deal with it. And obviously they raced into that 2-0 lead, that bizarre Marquinhos goal, when you see where you normally see your centre-back up front. But yeah, you've got to give credit to them. I think they've obviously got a chance, but you've got to think if PSG if Bayern have Lewandowski back up front and they get 30 attempts on goal like in the first leg, that's ridiculous to think that 30 shots against PSG. You're not playing some average, you're not playing Shakhtar Donetsk in the group stage. You're playing PSG. They had 30 shots on goal, and they only managed to score 2 goals from that. And there was a lot of chances, really, that you'd have thought if Lewandowski was in that team, you wouldn't have put it past them scoring 5 or 6.
They had Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting instead, and I think that was the difference. They didn't have that many quality players to call upon in his place.
Not Choupo-Moting, sorry. I think his name's Chopper Motor, isn't it? That's what Martin Keown kept saying.
He did. He kept calling him that, didn't
he? They kept calling Marquisio, and that was doing my head in as well.
He's in the wrong job completely as a pundit, especially in a Champions League game. Embarrassing. Kylian Mbappé. I was going to move on to talking about him next. He was the star player by far. Again, with Lewandowski in the picture as well, it might have been a different story. But he absolutely took his chance. I think Neymar, to his credit, didn't take the limelight. He literally let Mbappe do his thing, and he supported his strengths, which were sprinting into channels, and he did that brilliantly. So just a moment to acknowledge Kylian Mbappe. What did you see from him? Is he the best forward player in the world at the moment, or are we still looking at Lewandowski for that role, Myles?
So I hate to put a downer on this, and I'm not going to, because obviously Mbappe is phenomenal. I personally preferred Neymar's performance in that game.
He was quality.
Neymar's intelligence for the goals was just fantastic. That Marquinhos goal came from a beautiful delivery from Neymar. He weighted it perfectly. Mbappe's first goal, again, was Neymar breaking down the middle. And normally, a Neymar of a year ago even would have just gone, I'm doing this on my own. His intelligence, scoring more. Mbappe's first goal, I've watched 1,000 times. Cannot tell you how it goes in past Manuel Neuer. I think he just hits it hard enough.
It was hard enough, yeah.
The snow is coming down. It's early in the game, and Neuer's just caught a bit sleeping. Really, what happens is Mbappe doesn't hit it well enough, and that confuses Neuer. Neuer's going where that ball should go. Any striker shoots across goal, Neuer starts going that way, and it just goes straight at him. And Mbappe, I think that to his credit, the thing that is so impressive about him is he isn't just pace. He's intelligent with pace. And you find a lot of these quick forwards run without too much purpose. I think of someone like Dan James. Dan James is lightning quick, very, very fast. But a lot of the time you wonder what he does with that and whether he knows what he's doing with that or whether he's just energy and pace. Whereas Mbappe just seems to terrorize defenders because he sees where the space is first rather than trying to create it himself always. The thing that baffled me was Flick just got his selection completely wrong. We've seen this fixture before, and it worked for Bayern because Alphonso Davies is the only player who will play left back and keep up with Mbappe for a game. Yeah. And he didn't start him. I know he came on after a while, but the damage was done at that point. It was already there. I do think if Lewandowski's fit, it's a different score. If Gnabry is there as well, I think that was the other player they really missed because he would have played up front instead of Choupo-Moting. But obviously he had COVID, didn't he? And then to play Nicolas Süle in a game like that, like as good as a defender as he is in the Bundesliga, he's not going to keep up with the tricks of Neymar. No. It was silly. It was poor selection. So yeah, Mbappe had a great game. It's not his greatest moment. in my mind, because I think they made it too easy for him, and that disappointed me at Bayern personally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Bayern have been on this ridiculous run of wins or been undefeated in the Champions League. I think it was like maybe a bit of complacency creeping in because they've been invincible for so long in this competition. And let's face it, PSG have been pretty flimsy in the latter stages of the competition. Maybe they just didn't expect PSG to turn up, but they did. They had so many chances, though, that they could have converted, and they just needed somebody on the end of them that was world-class enough to finish them, and they just didn't have it.
If you take Mbappé and Neymar out of that PSG team, which is essentially what Bayern were playing with without Lewandowski and Gnabry, that game is a completely different game again. Bayern still created a lot and did play well, to be honest. I read a stat at half-time, I think, because that game was the same day as the Chelsea-Porto game. And I think between them, Bayern and Porto had 27 shots at goal in the first half and scored 1 goal. And Chelsea and PSG had 3 shots on goal in the first half and scored 3 goals. So this week was just all about clinical finishing in the Champions League. Yeah. It was the best round of Champions League fixtures consistently that I've seen in a really long time.
I agree.
The Bayern game was brilliant. I just wish Lewandowski had been there. It could have been 8-4 if Lewandowski was playing. Like, it was that kind of game.
Yeah. It was a kind of game that I think a Champions League quarter-final first leg needed, because these kind of events can be pretty sterile, but we've got anything but that this time around. It was really great for the neutral. And I know United weren't involved, and I that annoys me, but it's nice and better as a neutral to see that kind of football taking place when your team's not involved in it. So, yeah, I was quite grateful for that. But that moves me on nicely to the Europa League, back onto the United standard. That was still quite interesting to watch. There's quite a few highlights from the Europa League action. United themselves beat Granada 2-0, which we kind of expected. Did you see anything from United, Dave, that suggested they were potential winners in waiting for the Europa League?
That's probably what I was like. I can't remember us winning 2-0 and playing that bad. Like,
it was shocking.
We couldn't put 4 passes together. And it was just, it's so frustrating to watch, because obviously you get at the end and you shouldn't need a goal like that from Bruno, like a penalty like that, to decide a game like that. The standard, that was light and day between the Europa League and the Champions League, and the quality that, the vast difference in quality between the two competitions. You've got Granada, who probably shouldn't even be at this stage of the Europa League anyway. It's probably better teams to run out. But we should have beaten them.
Soldado.
Their forward player, their main focal point of the attack, and English football fans are just going, is that all you've got, mate?
37-year-old.
Granada have got the worst defensive record in La Liga. We should have been putting 6 or 7 past them with our offensive players, and we just did it. It might be motivation. It might be, we're turning up to expect to beat them 4 or 5-0 and not having to, play in third gear. It could be that. And it's a bit of a strange one as well. Obviously, looking at Rashford, he looked like he was carrying an injury for the majority of that game. He had a knocked ankle. And we went 1-0 up, and you thought, the Granada don't look like they can do absolutely anything against it. They just didn't look threatening at all. You just thought, surely Solskjaer's got to take Rashford off at half time, because we can't afford him to get injured in this run now. Especially with Martial out, you'd be relying on, a completely inexperienced front line. You got Cavani, you got Greenwood. We'd be playing Ahmad, a player who's, very raw and obviously very talented. But I think I was screaming out for him to take Rashford off, because even in that second half, we didn't really need it. He didn't offer. It's been very visible, I think, especially since sort of the turn of the year. Rashford's run making, he's not been making as many runs through those channels as he was previously earlier on in the year. Ever since he's had this injury, it's just he doesn't look as mobile as he was previously. He's not looking to take players on. He's very clever. I'll tell you what, I think Rashford's more intelligent than a lot of people give him credit for, and how he. When he makes those runs and when he decides to, make those passes, because he's an underrated passer of the ball, I'll tell you that.
His goal was great.
I just feel as though the game didn't tell me a lot. We all expected United to win that game. It was just a matter of how many. I was personally disappointed by.
No, it's a bit of a formality.
At the end of the day,
The amount of possession we had against them, we should have smashed them.
Yeah, definitely.
Could have been worse though. Granada knocked out Napoli in this competition. Remember, Napoli are no more.
Yeah, it could have been,
and it could have been worse. Could have been Arsenal.
That's the thing. Though. If we were playing Sevilla like we did last year, Sevilla probably would have scored a couple of goals against us.
Yeah.
It only takes to face a half decent team at this stage of the competition, and if you're not on your game, you could be out.
Yeah, well, moving on to the other games, Arsenal drew 1-1 with Slavia Prague, which is kind of in line with their form at the moment, and not a great performance there at all. Ajax 1, Roma 2, and Dynamo Zagreb 0, Villarreal 1. So it's a few tasty teams still left in the competition. Myles, you've got Roma colours on today. What did you make of the Ajax-Roma game?
So I think that Roma might. I'm gonna go out and say I think Roma might win it this year. I'm really hopeful of it, to be honest. They've had a really funny season. Really early on, their best player has picked up an injury, and that should be the team. the new title, let's say. So Zaniolo over in Roma, obviously last season picked up a horrible injury and looked like he was going to miss the Euros. Then obviously lockdown happened. He came back, was outstanding again, and then has done the same injury but to his other leg. So Zaniolo's been out all season, and Roma have kind of been in this weird limbo. They had a takeover come through last summer, but quite late in the day in terms of the transfer market, so didn't do too much with it. And then obviously some Italian teams have really stepped up in the leagues over recent years. I'm thinking the likes of Atalanta, even Lazio, as much as it pains me to say it. And Roma have found themselves in a weird limbo. The Milan clubs are back. Juve have been dominant. Napoli are fantastic. So what are Roma now? They've obviously moved on from the generation of Totti. De Rossi's gone. They've always had that Roman in their team leading. They let Florenzi go to PSG. And this year it's been really apparent that they're kind of in a transition. Edin Dzeko has been a leader for him for a long time. He's fallen out with the manager. And if you'd said to me at the start of the season, Edin Dzeko will have only played, I think, 15 games in the league this season, I'd be worried as to why. But they've had a few players step up. Pellegrini has come in. He's captain in the side. He's only 24, but he's a Roman. So you can tell he's someone that cares about the club, come through. And I think the top four is looking harder for them. So the Europa League is their best chance to get back into the Champions League. And some of the young players they have could give them a really exciting future. I was sad because they let Cengiz Under go to Leicester. They let Kluivert go to Leipzig. And I thought, that's a really disappointing sign. You don't want to see your young players going so you can bring in Pedro and Mkhitaryan. But they've both done a really good job there and brought in a bit of a winning mentality around some younger players. So it was a fortunate result against Ajax. Obviously, the penalty save is a massive moment across the two legs. But now they're on top. Now, I really fancy them to go through it. And then in the semi-final, it looks like they'll have Man United. We know what Man United like to do in semi-finals. I look at it and think that the winner of that semi-final will win it because the likelihood is it will be. You'd think Arsenal will get through against Slavia Prague, and they'll come up against Unai Emery, who does love it. But yeah, I honestly think Roma could do it this season. Borja Mayoral, who's come in from Real Madrid, is top scorer in the competition this year as well. So even with Dzeko kind of being out, he's banging goals. El Shaarawy's back, and he's always exciting. And Mkhitaryan, do you know what? He's been fantastic, in my opinion. I think he looks a really lively player again. So I'm hopeful. I think, although they're 7th in the league now, which is really disappointing, and Lazio are above them, the Europa League could be where it's at for Roma. And they're just solid at the end of the day, and they just do everything efficiently. They're not necessarily the most thrilling at times, but they'll get a job done. So I'm hoping they'll get the Europa League done.
So you're saying Roma for the Europa League, you sort of making that claim now. That's you nailing your colours to the mast.
Watch them get knocked out to Ajax now.
Well, they've got 2 away goals, so they're in a really great position. But if I'm gonna push all of you for the same thing. So Europa League winners in your eyes, and also Champions League. Who are you saying, Myles?
Oh, Champions League's a lot harder. I think I'm probably leaning towards. Do you know what? Even as I went to say it, I doubted myself. I think PSG will do it this year. because I think Lewandowski's still going to be out for Bayern, and I can see them getting that job done. Then they've got Chelsea, then they're in the final, really. And I don't trust Man City. Guardiola loves to overthink things. Dortmund could knock City out. I won't be surprised at that. Yeah. And Madrid, it will be Madrid or PSG. So I'm going to say PSG.
Well, I'm going to go and say it's a Man United, Man City 1-2 for the Europa League and Champions League. So, you heard it here first. John, what's your prediction, mate? I'm going to press you for yours.
Roma's a good shout, I think, for the Europa League or United. So, I'll probably go with Roma, I think.
Yeah, go on, John.
Myles, just to give you a little bit of pizzazz. And then for the Champions League, I can't pick a team, but I'll be the winner of PSG Bayern Munich. We've seen PSG capitulate a few years ago with that famous Barcelona game where they lost 6-1 or whatever it was. So if Bayern score early, that could be a very, very interesting game. I believe the winner of that will go on to win. So yeah, PSG or Bayern Munich.
Dave, what's your thoughts?
It'd be interesting to see what the odds are for Bayern to win the Champions League now. Now they're obviously, a goal down in a tie. I still think they probably will win it. I'm just saying anyone but Liverpool or Man City. I still don't think Liverpool are out of that time. And you can't say they are. But
yes, they are.
I'm just hoping they are.
No. They've got no way going back into that tie. That's done. That's buried.
With Kabak and Phillips at the back, you're not going to beat Real Madrid. Real Madrid seems to be the first team who have gone, they've got two centre-backs we've never heard of. Let's just play a ball down the middle. And even if we don't play down the middle, Trent will help it there on the way.
It was that easy.
Yes.
So you're saying...
I'm hoping... Yeah, I'm hoping...
Who are you saying?
Bayern. I'm hoping United, but it sounds silly, but we can't buy a win against Arsenal at the minute. So I hope we don't face Arsenal in the final because I'd have opportunity to beat them.
Well, bold prediction. Thanks for that. Thanks for your decisiveness with your decisions, guys. Yeah, give me either ors here and there. No actual committal there whatsoever, apart from Roma to win the Europa League for Myles, but a bit of bias there, I reckon. Right, that's it, guys. We're going to wrap it up there, but thanks a lot for your time. We'll be back same time next week just to see what's going on with the week in football. But until then, it's been awesome. It's been a pleasure. Have a good night, guys, and thanks for everyone for watching. See you soon.
All the best.
Cheers.
In a bit.